Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Marketplace Growth by Accoil. This week, we're talking about events and not just what to do about them, but actually showing up, why it's important to get on the plane and go and show your face at these live and in-person events, especially now that we can. And I'm excited to have Simon with me this week. So we are starting something new with Accoil Analytics, and we're bringing in new faces. I guess it's old faces though, Simon, right? It's not old in the sense that you're old, but we've been working together for a while. So it's nice to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Peter. If I'm old, I'm not sure what that means for you, but it's great to be here and to be talking about events again, because we're certainly looking forward to events for Accoil that we'll be attending later in April and in May. And primarily, Accoil's off to Atlassian's Team 24 and SaaStock in Austin, which are both very exciting.
Really excited about going to both of those. It'll be fun to be in Vegas, and Austin's a new city for me, so I'm pretty pumped about that. All right, so we've got 5 reasons why we think it's important to show up at these events, to get on the plane and go. I'll start with number 1. It's discovery. When Simon, Kate, and I were talking about this before the call, and discovery meaning talking to your customers, how do you think about doing discovery when, say, we're at Atlassian Team 24? What kind of conversations are you planning on having?
Pete, discovery is great. It's one, obviously, about customers discovering you. But I think it's as much also discovering from customers, existing customers or new customers, about all of those different use cases and getting insight into how people are using the product or thinking about using the product that you just haven't seen or you haven't sort of got to in your own thinking. So I think that's a really rich source of information to then bring back into make use of, both in your sort of support material or your marketing or the various sort of blogs and other paraphernalia that you put out there. Pete, discovery, what does it mean to you?
I think adding to that, one of the common complaints that I think we had as marketplace partners, and that I've heard from a lot of marketplace partners and businesses at large, is, customers don't want to talk to us. To me, this is the best way to get those direct customer conversations. And this goes even further than like a support ticket where you get to trade notes back and forth. You actually are, front to front with someone in person. They get to know you. And we'll talk about why that's important later, building those relationships. But you just get to learn a lot, and it's fast, which is another thing that we'll talk about later too. But that discovery, having those really in-depth conversations, having a laptop in front of you that you can actually both use and watch at the same time actually does a lot. And it's always hard to get that over-the-shoulder look. Like, how does someone actually use our product? Well, it's right there for you. So I think that's a huge part of showing up.
It's a lot quicker than setting up a whole lot of Zoom calls with one-on-one with different customers.
Asking to share screens, having to update Zoom. Yes, this is way easier and faster. Next thing that we have is validation. So if you have ideas that you want to bring to market, this is also kind of like discovery, a very fast way to get that done. Did we ever do this with Proforma? Were there any features that you took to, say, team to validate in person?
There were 2 that I can think of. One that we did validate, and then we didn't listen to the customer. When we first released Proforma for Server and Data Center, we tried wrapping it in taking a cloud product, wrapping it in a Docker image, and then trying to sell that to DC. And it fell on its face. We had some people that were telling us, "Oh, this is a great, novel, quick way to get to market to have a data center." And then we had a couple of Jira admins that were telling us that's a terrible idea. We're never going to install a Docker image alongside an app within Jira. We should have listened to the latter because it was a terrible idea. It never took off. But we've also taken other ideas, products and features that we've been developing on and we've been speccing, and taking that to a customer and just being able to talk through the flow of a particular new feature, or to show them some wireframes or prototypes and say, would this work for you? Talk to me about how you would use this. I mean, you certainly want to be aware of like the mum test, and they're going to tell you that your baby's beautiful even if it's ugly. But you can get very fast validation on some new ideas and really get some insight. If you've got one particular use, like I was saying with discovery, you can hear from customers about how they might take a feature and reapply it or reuse it for some other context that you hadn't thought of. So it's great for that.
Yeah, I think we learned of a lot of use cases just being there, talking to people. And exactly that, right? Like, how would you actually use this? Which I remember being surprised by a lot of things. And again, just being in person with a laptop between you is great.
The other quick validation that you get, Peter, is on your marketing and how you're pitching the product. because when you're talking to someone, you can tell if if you're on the right path within seconds. And it takes a lot longer to kind of understand whether that particular positioning, particular sort of messaging is cutting through with customers or potential customers. Whereas that validation for marketing at events is invaluable.
And I think we saw that with our booth design in 2019 there, when we showed up with a bit of a new positioning statement on the booth, and all of a sudden it resonated with people, and that was really clear from the moment the doors open. So yeah, really fast way to find out if you're getting it right or not, and to test new stuff while you're talking to people. Speaking of people, third thing we've got is relationships. And I think, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn trying to build relationships there. It's always a LinkedIn thing. And there's always this sort of this gap, right? Where it's like, yeah, do I know somebody? Call them a friend? Are they colleagues? If all you know, if the only way that you know them is LinkedIn or Slack, I think that there's a big gap missing in that actual relationship. So showing up at these events, if nothing else, getting to meet the people that you engage with on a daily, weekly basis is critically important. And I know it was for us, for just in terms of partners, customers, and like channel relationships. And I don't know, could you expand on that? Like, what did it mean to you to show up?
Oh, it's been huge, Pete. And for us, we've still got great friendships and friends now, plus sort of colleagues and sort of partners that we met in 2016 from the very first team event that we went to, which has just been invaluable, particularly within a marketplace, knowing other partners that you can sort of call out to and be able to pick their brains on sort of whether it's at the event or sort of months later, just to get that insight into whether that new marketing campaign or new approach, have they tried something similar? So having that kind of relationship, being able to draw on other people's strengths and knowledge is fantastic. Building relationships with Atlassian, it's a very slow process if you've only got the developer community and a support ticket and maybe a Slack message to one insider. But if you can actually make a connection with Atlassians and explain why that particular bug or problem is such an issue for you and all of your customers, it's amazing how often things can sort of move quickly. I mean, I've seen sort of breaking bugs disappear overnight just by turning up to some of these events. And then, of course, you've got relationship with customers. I mean, there are it's just sort of building that sort of, whether it's sales or actually just sort of building an understanding with some of your best customers about how they're using the product, and just being able to come back to them sort of year after year and see how their use of your product has evolved is just really gratifying. And you don't get that typically just through a support channel. Like, you only ever hear about the negatives in a support channel, whereas going to these events can be so validating because you hear the success stories where you've gone from 2 service desks to 120 service desks. And now, or you've gone from sort of a few hundred employees to 70,000 employees that are all using your product. It's huge and a great benefit to being there.
And I think what I find that showing up in person does is it kind of shifts that relationship from vendor-vendee to, like, we actually now know each other. I can call Simon. I can, it goes both ways now. It's not just this sort of transactional thing where once you shake hands with someone and actually sit down and maybe have a cup of coffee or even just a 5-minute chat, it changes the nature of the relationship in a way that actually just helps do that, right? Expand seats. You get champions within these companies, and it's I think we've stayed friends with a few people that were pro forma users, like, even to this day. I'm pretty sure that we'll see this year and try to sell them something new.
The other thing, but you do need to be aware of that when you've got those bugs and you've got sort of squeaky wheel sort of customers, or there's an issue that's just causing pain for your customers, you're going to hear about that in person too. And that's not going to change. So, be prepared for people coming up and kind of really pressing their case to get something fixed. But you'll also find that you probably have a far greater understanding of the impact of that bug. So your roadmap may change as a consequence.
And I think that's a good segue into the next thing, which is trust. So building trust through, keeping your word through support and all that stuff is great, and making commitments and promising, and like when we're going to release things, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, again, showing up. And I think everything that we kind of just talked about really just builds that trust. So relationships are great. Trust is way better. If they show up and they have a complaint about something and you actually take it and action it, I don't know. I think that speaks volumes. So building that trust is huge, and it's a lot more easy to do in person.
I think the other aspect of trust, which is critical, Pete, is the fact that you're there and solution partners see that you're there. And I think for us, it really took 2-3 years of attending Summit and then Team for solution partners to trust the fact that we were committed to the marketplace and that we were going to keep coming back and keep building on our product. Because it's a big thing for a solution partner to include a new app into their solution toolkit. And one of the fastest way to build that is to show your commitment via paying, this will probably be edited out, by paying the Atlassian tax.
I might beep that. Is that
yeah, by paying the Atlassian tax and just turning up and showing your commitment. And I think the other opportunity you get talking about relationships is don't forget that there's all the downtime when there are keynotes on. And that's a great opportunity to go and talk and build those relationship partners and other marketplace.
Wait, you're not actually going and watching the keynotes? Secret's out now, Simon. Yeah, I think, what was I going to say on that? Yeah, the solution partner side of things. You nailed it with, we spent a lot of money to be here. And it's just, to me, it's another proof point that we're actually invested in this. We're not coming here to like run into the market, grab some money, and then run away and hide. It's actually, we're here to stay, we're here to play, and we're serious about it. And I think that goes back to something that we've talked about a lot on this channel, is showing up bigger than you actually are, right? And sometimes that means spending a bit of cash to show up at these things. But in the long run, it was really, really worth it, especially on that solution partner side too. I think it's worth pointing out. Last thing that we have today is faster learning about the market that you're in. So you can have competitive intel teams. You can have people that, read competitor blogs, industry blogs, all that sort of stuff. But if you really want to know what's happening right now, I find that having a chat with people, even just quick conversations, you just hear things that all of a sudden open your eyes to whole new shifts in the market or new waves that are coming. Have you experienced anything like that just with these events?
Pete, it's a fabulous way to know what your customers are thinking and where their head's going, because they're bringing the insights of all the stuff that they read, and they're going to be sharing it with you, and they're going to be comparing what you do to what someone else is. If you're running through a new idea or sort of testing something with them, they'll bring all of their knowledge and insights and beliefs that they've got from attending all the other conferences that you can't get to or won't be invited to. I think we were actively booted out of a ServiceNow conference when we tried to register. But customers, solution partners, they're all in the market and they're all following what's going on. So it's a great opportunity to just draw that knowledge out and sort of learn from your customers, learn from the partners, and also learn from Atlassian. And you just can't do it, particularly if you're remote. And not near, everyone's remote these days. So that's a lot of Zoom calls and a lot of calendar scheduling to try and get even a fraction of the insights.
Well, you don't really have those serendipitous moments, do you? The hallway moments where you run into someone that you haven't seen in a while and, they say something offhand that kind of, twigs a little bit and you think, oh, that's new, because you don't really get that on Zoom breakout rooms. So I think that's a huge thing for me in particular is just soaking up as much as I can and maybe getting out of my own bubble. Really, I tend to read the same stuff and sometimes need to be brought back to reality. That's it for this week. We've got 5 reasons why we think that you should be going to events. So if you've thought, it's too expensive, the flights are too long, I'd encourage you to book the ticket, get on the plane, show up, shake some hands. I hope that we get to see you at Atlassian's Team 24 and at SaaStock in Austin this May. Quick recap, 5 things: discovery, validation, relationships, trust, and learning what the market is thinking about to help you grow your business better. Anything else you want to add, Simon, before we go?
No, great to be here, and I'm filling some very big shoes.
As Kate says, more sales to you. See you next time.